Good evening. Welcome to Finally I Choose Me, where conversations are authentic, where authenticity meets purpose. Tonight's show is a very serious show. It's just not a crisis, a personal crisis, but it's a global crisis. Tonight's show is about domestic violence. In October, we represent domestic violence, but we know that this continues daily and annually. Statistically, 1,000 to 1,500 women are murdered by their intimate partner. So tonight, we want to discuss in honor of Tracy Rachelle Lewis. Her sister will share their compelling story and journey of tragedy, journey of healing, and then we want to bring some self-awareness. So can we welcome Miss Ry Lewis to the show?
Hi, thank you so much for
Hi.
having me.
You are very welcome, and we are very excited about you joining us tonight. I know this is a difficult topic, but it is a topic that we as women must keep alive. Myself, I grew up in a domestic violence household, and so I totally understand the dynamics of domestic violence. But I want you to share about your beautiful sister, Tracy. Tell us about your family story and the loss of your dear sister, and not just your sister, but the beautiful baby she was carrying as well.
Absolutely. My sister, Tracy Renee Anderson, formerly Tracy Renee Lewis, she was just a light. She had this personality that was just so strong and bubbly, and people just loved her. Like she could walk into a room and smile, and she would just bright up your day. Um, she had the personality of a person who was a go-getter. She had determination in her. She was definitely a fighter, but she loved hard, just like I do. And that was my sibling. We grew up together. We were all each other had. We shared the same mother and father. So this wasn't, my stepsister, or as some people have, assumed, or, just my my half sister. This was my full-blooded sister. And she was 3 years younger than me, almost 3 years younger than me. And so of course we fought, we bickered as siblings, of
Of
course.
course. Of course.
We loved each other. We had each other's back no matter what. She was a great whiz at math, numbers. That was her thing. She could work in accounting and get you all the way together. So
I,
she knew her thing. She knew her stuff. So Tracy was an amazing person. She was a giver, kind-hearted. She loved any and everybody. She would give you the shirt off her back if she could. And she was definitely like me when it came to like feminism. I am a feminist, and I definitely believe my sister was as well. She wanted to help women, especially women who were victims of domestic violence, which
mm,
is kind of what brings us here today, after what happened to her as well. So, yeah.
thank you. She sounds like she was a wonderful person. So, as you think about that moment of time, I know that in speaking with your mother, she was in a relationship. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know about the relationship and kind of what happened that led to such a tragedy?
Well, the relationship was toxic to begin with.
Okay.
I did not know off the top of my head, like I didn't know from the start that it was a toxic relationship. I just knew that she had gotten with this guy, and they moved pretty quickly in the relationship, because 1 minute we were hearing about him, the next minute we were hearing that they were moving in together, and then the next minute she's pregnant. And
Okay.
so it just kind of moved really quickly. But I am not one to judge her on that. I've moved quickly in relationships before
Me
too, so I
too.
get it.
Mhm.
You know, like I said, both me and my sister were people who we love hard. So when we fall for somebody, we fall for them, and we try to give them our all and our best. And so I
Okay.
believe that's what she did with that relationship. We shared conversations,
Mm-hmm.
private conversations where she basically, told me how much she was in love with him, how much, she was so happy to be with him and all of that. And then the day she called to tell me she was pregnant, we were both crying. We were excited,
Right.
happy. This was going to be the first baby born in our family, like in a really long time. So everybody was super excited. And then she got to be about 6 months pregnant and found out that she wasn't going to have a boy because they thought it was a boy at first. So she found out it wasn't a boy and that it was a girl. And so apparently, I guess her child's father was not happy about that. I guess he wanted a boy.
Okay.
And so it just became more and more information was coming to light as time progressed. We are getting phone calls from my sister at this point. When I say me and my mom, getting phone calls from my sister at this point that she decided to not go into work one day because she wasn't feeling well. She was having some issues with the pregnancy that day. So she decided to go and get herself a burners and go back home. And when she got back home, she walked in, well, didn't necessarily walk in. She went to unlock the apartment door and couldn't get all the way in because the chain was on the door, which indicated that he was home. And so she was yelling through the door, like, unlock the door. Why is the door locked? And so he takes a long time to get to the door, gets to the door, unlocks it, and he's standing there dripping wet with a towel on, nothing but a towel on. And she walks into the apartment. She's like, what's going on? And she happens to look over and see that there's a young lady there in the apartment. And
oh, wow.
One thing, one thing led to another. And it became a physical altercation between my sister, the young lady, and him. And so basically he hit my sister and held her down so that the young lady could run out of the apartment. And he ran out of the apartment himself. And that's the first time we had heard of anything. She called me and my mom crying, telling us about the situation. And we both begged her, please go back home to Michigan, go back to Detroit, because she was living in Texas at this time. And so she's like, no, she's like, I can't leave. I have a really good paying job here. I'll just do this on my own. Me and my baby, I'll do it on my own. I don't want to struggle. There's nothing for me back home in Michigan. I want to stay here where I'm making good money to take care of my kid. And so, all we could do is respect her decision. A lot of people have asked me, why didn't you guys force her? Why didn't y'all make her go back? And I'm like, you can't make somebody do anything. She's grown. And at the end of the day, I respected her choice, especially when you're telling me this is for your child. I'm staying here for my child. Bump him. I'm going to stay here and do what I have to do to take care of my baby.
Exactly.
So at that point, like, yeah, I'm all for this. Long as you get away from him, do what you got to do.
Good. Right.
So it spiraled very quickly, and she did leave him for some time. And then I guess they had another apartment together. And so, I don't know, I guess he at some point moved into the new apartment. She moved in by herself. And at some point, he followed because both their names were on the lease because they had already signed for the apartment. So, he moved in, and he was pretty much kind of torturing her in a way when he moved in, doing things like going in her bedroom because they had a 2-bedroom apartment. So he stayed in one room, she stayed in the other. And he would go in her bedroom, snatch the TV out the wall, take it out of her bedroom while she's laying there watching TV. Just little petty things he would do, And so, things got worse and worse. They would fight, they would argue. He had a drinking problem. And when he would drink, she didn't want to be bothered with that. So she would lock him out of the apartment. And
Okay.
so, yeah, that was kind of another big red flag. So when we're talking about red flags and dating and things like that, and just knowing when it's time to walk away, that's definitely one. If you're with a person who can't, because there's nothing wrong with drinking, in my opinion. I don't find anything wrong with drinking, but
Right.
if you're
Of
a person
course.
who can't control themselves, you drink, that's a problem. So when we're talking about domestic violence awareness, we're also talking about alcoholism. We're talking about drug abuse, because these are things that provoke people, that
Mm-hmm.
brings up those demons inside of them to make
Mm-hmm.
them this way.
Mm-hmm.
Not to excuse their behavior at all, because there's never any excuse. But
Mm-hmm.
these are people who definitely need counseling. You need to
Mm-hmm.
seek help before you go seek in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Seek therapy. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't, when a person realizes they can't have their way, that's what they do. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go get high. I'm going to act a fool until she or he does what I want them to do, basically. I'm going to let this poison take over me, basically. There are
Yeah,
people who have
mood
been,
induced.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
chemical
And there are
induced.
people, yeah. And there are people who have been through abuse from like childhood, and it causes them to act that way too. However, let me just say, I've dealt with abuse in my childhood from family members. And I was a person who would say, oh, I will not allow what has happened to me to define who I am.
Right.
I didn't get to that point until later in my adult life, because I was actually on both ends of abuse. I was the abuser at one point, and I was the abused. And
So
so that's
let's
why I can speak. And mhm.
No, I didn't want to cut. I think that was very courageous for you to say,
No, go
as a
ahead.
woman, that you were also an abuser, because a lot of times we think domestic violence is just about women, but men get abused as well, but they probably don't come out and speak about it. And so I just wanted to commend you. Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit about that, if you don't mind? Like, what did it mean for you to be the abuser? What was your behavior? Because it's a pattern of learned behavior. And so as an
Mm-hmm.
abuser,
Yep, exactly.
how did you show up as an abuser?
So not to excuse my behavior or anything like that, but
True.
when I was with one of my exes, he thought that it was appropriate to call me a B out my name. He thought it was
Okay.
appropriate to talk down to me. And I was just
Mhm.
like, I'm not gonna tolerate that. Who are you talking to? And when he would
Mhm.
call me out of my name, I would react
Mhm.
and punch him.
Okay.
And at that time, I was 95 pounds soaking wet. I was practically 95 pounds my whole life almost. When the pandemic hit, then I blew up. But I was a little thing, and I'm hitting on this big dude, who I knew did not hit women. But that doesn't mean anything. He could have hit his breaking point. He could have decided, you know what, I'm gonna knock you
And
out because
hit
you keep
back.
putting your hands on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it could have been lights out for me at 95 pounds. That could have been a wrap. That could have been it. But yeah, I reacted to how he treated me. And instead of me reacting that way, I should have walked away. I should have just left the relationship.
Right.
But I chose not to. And so I have no type of pride or any of that. I can definitely admit my faults and my flaws. I am not perfect. I'm human. And I made those mistakes coming from a person who was abused in her childhood
Okay.
by various family members. I can definitely admit that kind of took a toll on me, to the point that I seek help? No, I thought that was normal. I thought that was normal behavior because it had been done to me. So I thought it was
Mhm.
normal when I get grown and I get into a relationship, it's normal for me to hit back. I'm a hit back, whether they hit me with their words or their hands. I'm a fighter. I had to defend
Right.
myself in school a lot because I was bullied. I had to
Okay.
fight back then, and it was just an ongoing cycle. So me being the abuser, At that time, I was not identifying myself as an abuser. I was just
I
thinking
understand
like, don't
because
defend me,
right. And so that's
Um,
we normalize that because that's what we were taught. I can remember coming up, I was taught to hit first.
yeah.
Like if I think it's about to go down,
Mhm.
I'm hitting first. And in relationships, I was taught not to fight fair. So I would pick up something. But because I grew up in that environment, if you think about the origin of the behavior, that's what I saw. And so it seems
Yeah.
normal until you realize the toll that it's taking on you as a person, your relationships, your livelihood. And so I just wanted to
Yeah.
pause there because rarely do we hear the woman say, I was the abuser. And so I
Yeah.
just, celebrate you for sharing that. And that's when healing has occurred because we usually don't tell the parts of us that was not, that was toxic. Rather, we always talk about how everybody else was toxic, but we don't talk about our own toxicity. So moving towards Tracy's story, how did that unfold? How did her story, or what happened with her by her being in Texas and you and your mom being here in Michigan? How did you all discover what occurred?
So actually at the time when Tracy's story unfolded, my mom was living in Michigan still. I was actually already back here in Arizona where I'm at now,
Okay.
with my ex-husband. And
Okay.
we had honestly just moved from Arizona to California where my ex-husband was from,
Okay.
so that he could pursue some things for his children. And then we ended up coming back. And 2 weeks into us coming back, my sister's story happened. And let me just say this before I start on that. So Tracy and I were not speaking when she passed away.
Mm. Mhm.
Tracy and I had a falling out
Mhm.
because I was sick and tired of this man hurting my sister.
Mhm.
So I sent him a message on Facebook Messenger and let him know that if he put his hands on her again, I would handle him myself. He
Mhm.
didn't see the message, but she did. And so she called me and she was like, "You do not address the father of my child that way. You're uninvited to the birth. You're uninvited to the baby shower." And
Oh
she
wow.
hung up, and that was the last book.
Mm.
So,
I'm sorry.
so this, yeah, it cuts really, really deep for me.
Of course.
But I've healed from it. I know that my sister knows that I loved her. I love her, and that I would go to the ends of the earth for her. I know that she knew I just wanted the very best for her, and I was trying to protect her.
Mhm.
So when her story unfolded, I will never forget the day.
Of
It
course.
was March 23rd, 2014. And my mom had reached out to me. It was a Sunday. My mom had reached out to me and she said, "Hey," she texted me, "Hey, I'm sure everything's fine, but I haven't heard from your sister for like a whole day. And so I'm a little worried. So I'm just letting you know I'm going to call the police and see if they can do a welfare check. You know, she's all the way out there in Texas." And I said, "Okay, yeah, just let me know." And so she said, "Okay." Well, my ex-husband and I, we were still together at the time. So we had gotten together and went on to church and everything. And I was in church service that day. And this was a new church. We hadn't been there before, we were visiting. And I remember I just started crying in the middle of the service. And I didn't understand why. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? So back then, I didn't have much of an appetite. My appetite was kind of suppressed. And
Mhm.
we went to Denny's after church and we went to eat. And I remember I ate all my food. And I'm like, that's weird. But I'm like, whatever. So we go back to the house and I had him work on some paperwork. We had to do something. So I had him doing that, and I started sorting some laundry, and I had my phone sitting up on the dresser in the bedroom, and it was still on vibrate from when we were at church. And so I had it sitting face up, and I started sorting the laundry, and I heard a buzzing noise. So I look over at my phone, and I see it's my phone. And I see it said mom. And so I told my husband, I said, I don't want to answer that. And he said, why? And I said, I don't know. I don't want to answer that. I don't know what she's going to tell me. And he's like, Ry, just answer it. I'm sure it's fine. He was like, your sister's done this before where she turned her phone off for like a whole day and just slept in or whatever,
Right.
Just answer. So I answered. And when I answered that call, that was a sound that I never wanted to hear again in life. The way my mom was screaming. And all I heard her say was, he killed her. And I don't remember exactly what happened after that because I blacked out. And all I know is that my ex-husband was holding me when I came to. So he caught me before my head hit the floor. And I started getting phone calls like crazy from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I had a brand new number. I don't know how these people got my number, but they were calling me left to right. I'm so sorry. Call me right now. How you doing? How's your mom? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And I'm thinking I'm waking up from a dream.
Of course.
And I'm like, This can't be true. This can't be real. And so at that time, I was thinking he shot my sister. So I called my mom back. She's still crying. She can't compose herself. I'm trying to talk to my aunt who's with her at the time. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, are you telling me I don't have a sibling anymore? And my aunt, she's telling me, she's like, she's gone, she's gone. And I'm like, I'm not even thinking to ask about the baby at the time. My mind is just all over the place. So I am like making phone calls. I'm trying to get a hold of my dad because my dad lived in Georgia at the time. He didn't know he was estranged from us. So he didn't know. So I'm trying to like call my grandmother out there and tell her to like let him know to call me. And it's just craziness. And get him on the phone and I tell him. And again, there's that scream. And I honestly didn't feel like my dad was in any position to grieve because
he hadn't been around.
Abused my mother.
Oh, okay. Wow.
He hadn't been around. He abused my mother, And I'm like, my mom could have been in that same position at your hands. So why are you grieving? But I just still felt like he had the right to know she was his child. At this time, my sister's killer, whose name I never speak, he was not found. He could not be found. And so the police called me and I said, what do you mean you're looking for him? You're concerned about his safety. I said, he's the one who did this. And they said, well, how do you know he did this? I said, I just know. I know that he did this. Well, he's a missing person. I said, I don't care. He did this. So later that night, I'm still like just sitting on the floor of my bedroom at the time. And my husband's sitting in the bed and he's trying to like look up information online and stuff and see what he can do. I get a phone call from my sister's job, someone at my sister's job. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to, give my condolences. Tracy was such an amazing person. She's like, I just cannot believe that he would stab her to death. And I lost it all over again because I thought that he had shot my sister. I didn't know he stabbed her.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until later at the 13 times in the stomach, taking the life of my niece.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the hardest pill I've ever had to swallow in life.
Yeah. And that we're very sorry for your loss. This type of trauma and tragedy, you can relive it for the rest of your life. But again, we thank you for you just sharing. I know this isn't easy. Before we go to break, how did this story come to TV1? Fatal Attraction. I know I met your mom, and we also had honored her. My sorority, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, had honored her for sharing in the work that she's doing. But can you tell us a little bit how it transitioned to TV1? I know your mom is just always determined to keep her name alive and keep the story out there and bring awareness. How did they capture this story?
I believe that TV1 and the station Fatal Attraction, I believe they did an amazing job at capturing the story.
I watched it.
When yeah, when they reached out to us, it was crazy because it was like late at night. My mom got this email. I was living back in California at this time. I had moved to California in 2017. And so TV1 had reached out and sent an email. My mom was like, "Is this legit?" And I'm looking at it. Luckily, I had friends who worked for TV1. They were producers over at TV1. And so I reached out to them and they were like, "Oh, yeah, that's legit." And I thought they had said something to them. And they said, "No." I don't know how they got the story, but they got it. And they asked if they can cover it. And they did. And they did just an awesome job. We really appreciate them.
So how did that impact you watching it on TV1?
It made me emotional, just as emotional as it was to be interviewed by them. Both me and my
Okay.
mom were interviewed by them for the documentary, and just watching it play out, her whole story it really brought me to tears and brought me to my knees because that was my sister, you know?
Of course. Of
Um,
course. Of course. So, first of all, you got to know you're a strong queen tonight for sharing this. And we want to bring awareness to domestic violence. At the same time, we want to keep Tracy's name alive in honor of her life. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about what are some signs. I want to talk about this love heart thing that we do as women. And then I want to talk about the nonprofit and some signs and symptoms. You know, what should women do at the first sign of domestic violence? When we return, we will finalize those areas and talk further. Join Dr. Crystal Eason every other Sunday at 7 p.m. for Finally I Choose Me, where your purpose and authenticity join together. We look forward to you participating in the discussion. We agree with God about who we say we are. Please join us. So we are back. So when I talk to women all over, young, old, the term love hard. Now you tell me, what does that mean when you say you love hard? I'll share what I see when women say they love hard, and I know what it means for me. But just let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, so for me, I'm a nurturer.
Okay.
I am always caring about those that I love that are in my life. So I will go to bat for them. You know, I will make sure that they are protected. I will make sure that I'm there for them all the time. I will make sure that whatever it is that I can do for them, I do for them. And if I can't do it myself, I'm going to find a way to get it done if I can get somebody else to do it. I am just always big on being a listening ear, being a hugger, a giver, doing what I can to make sure that everybody in my circle is good at the end of the day.
So your love heart is, I love everybody heart, but as it relates to as it relates to intimate relationships or dating, what does that look like? I said this is the show for authenticity. We tell the truth here.
So, true. I am clingy. That's my love heart. Okay. I'm clingy. You know, I love smothering and kisses and just being all over him. And yeah, I would sit there and I would hug on my man and smell his neck. Like that's my love heart. You know, and I can be over the top. I know I can. I accept that. But at the same time, I don't apologize for it. That's me. You know, I know how to give someone space if they tell me they need it. But I will still, I'm back in like 5 minutes probably. Like, what you mean?
Clingy, is it? You just fun, clingy with it and not feeling, because some people are clingy because they're afraid or they're insecure about something. Like I wasn't clingy, but emotionally I could probably become attached, but my non-clinginess comes from where I come from, you know, just no affection. So you can't give something that you don't have. But love heart, what I see today, especially in the younger generation, is they think to some degree, if there's a young man that's chasing them or going off or, you know, giving them this toxicity, that means, you know, he has a higher level of love for them. And so there's a toxic love heart that can blind you of the signs and symptoms of a dangerous person.
Yes, so that is true. That would not be me. I have seen some friends in situations like that, and I would always get confused as to why you letting him control you like that. But see, the abuse that I went through, because I've also gone through abuse as well, and the abuse that I went through was kind of opposite of that, where it was controlling, but it wasn't like that. Like I didn't feel like, oh, I have to hurry up and go and do and be, because if not, he gonna act a fool or he gonna leave me or nothing. No, it wasn't like that for me. Mine was physical, verbal, emotional, of course. But and the reason why I didn't walk away is because, like I said, again, that was normal to me. Like, oh, okay, this is how you want to be. Well, I'm gonna be right, you know, right like that, right back with you. But as far as that part goes, just to share, I have recently been involved in a situation where a guy did try to do that to me. Okay. But because of who I am and where I come from and what I experienced with my sister and knowing my mom and my aunt and all of them and what they've been through, because it's a generational curse dealing with abuse. I was able to walk away. I was able to say no more. I didn't try to allow him to think that he had that control over me, that he could manipulate me in that way. So I could walk away from that situation.
And I want you to say this instead of what you said. It's a generational curse. I want you to say it was a generational curse.
Oh, it was. Definitely. When I say it's, I'm saying for a lot of people, not just me.
I know.
People, who are dealing with abuse. Yeah. You saying put it in the past? Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. But it's learned behavior. And a lot of times that's like the woman, you grow up and you have an alcoholic father and you say, oh, I ain't dating a man that's an alcoholic. But then you do. You date nothing but alcoholics, as a matter of fact. And it's the same thing with the domestic violence. I've heard women say, oh, I don't know why I keep attracting men that hit on me. But at the same time, we're victimized, but the world does not see us as victims. They see us as provoking the domestic violence, even with law enforcers, and then women change their mind. They don't press charges. And so they don't even take it serious, even though statistics show 1 in every 3 women are abused at the hands of a partner.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to clarify, loving hard in terms of how you put it, it's okay. But loving hard at the expense of ignoring the signs. So can we talk about some of these signs that he may not have even hit you yet physically, but the emotional signs. Can we talk a little bit about what those look like?
Yes, please. So the signs and what leads up to the physical abuse is when he's talking crazy to you. If he's telling you to shut up, if he's telling you shut the F up, especially, if he's telling you, so let's just say, here's an example. You're in a relationship with someone and this is your person. They going out of town on business for work, whatever. You knew that they were taking a flight. You haven't heard from them. So you're calling them to check up on them. Make sure they got there safely. Oh my God, yes, what? Why are you calling me? I'm calling to check on you. I love you too, To me, that's a red flag. Because why are you upset that I'm checking on you? Like, I have not bothered you all day, and I'm just trying to make sure you're good.
So hostility.
If it's only okay for them to, exactly. If it's only okay for them to call and text you when it's convenient for them, but it's not okay for you to call them or text them, because if you do, then that upsets them. That's another form of hostility. That's a red flag. Let's also talk about the fact that if they are belittling you in ways that it's not like they're doing it directly, they're kind of doing it indirectly. Oh, you're not smart, or you wouldn't know nothing about that, or you couldn't catch on, or little things. Pay attention to those little signs, because those little innuendos and little comments and stuff, those little jabs and dabs and stuff, it's a difference when you kidding with your person, y'all joke with each other. Y'all can joke, y'all can play, ain't nothing wrong with it. But if he's doing it, or he or she, if they're doing it in a way that is causing you to feel bad, it's not play no more for you. And then especially if you bring that to their attention and they blow it off, or they try to, better yet, gaslight you. What? I didn't say that. You tripping. You hearing things. You're delusional.
So from the start, someone who is not emotionally stable, actually, because a lot of times with women who love hard, on the flip side, will ignore that, or will say, I made him act that way. It was something I must have done for him to respond to me like that. And so a lot of women, they ignore it because they think they caused it. And so in domestic violent relationships, a lot of times women, even once it leads to physical, they stay in it because they think, oh, I should not have asked him that question, or I should not have pressed that issue, or he's had a rough day at work, or, so it's never the fact that this is just simply violence and abuse.
They do a lot of self-victim blaming.
Exactly.
And that's what I want a lot of victims to come to realize and understand. Stop blaming yourself. It wasn't you. You didn't do anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if you said something that might have insulted their ego. You didn't do nothing wrong. You're human. You make mistakes. We all make mistakes in life. And you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to freedom of speech. We're in America.
Absolutely.
Whatever you want. If he or she can say whatever they want, you can say whatever you want. And don't back down to anybody. Don't become an abuser.
Absolutely.
But don't back down.
That power and control wheel of domestic violence. You know, it's a power, and a lot of times women won't leave a relationship because, oh, I can't afford it, or I don't have anywhere to go, or I have his kids, or I'm afraid. I'll have to change my lifestyle. I won't have a car. What do you recommend to women, young ladies, who know that they should leave, but they're afraid?
There are resources and options available to help you. You do not have to rely on that person. You do not have to depend on them to take care of you or your children. You can leave with the clothes on your back. You can contact me and my mom. We don't have our domestic violence program anymore. However, we still help victims. So if they call us today, we will still help them.
So tell us about that.
You can find us on Facebook, social media.
So it was called Angel's House, right?
Yeah. So we have the Angel House.
The Angel House. Okay. So what did you do? What did you do that you still do, even though you don't necessarily have it housed up under that program? Tell us how you all came to birth that.
Yeah. So what brought the Angel House about was what happened to my sister and my niece. My mom knew that my sister always wanted to start a nonprofit to help women who were victims of domestic violence, or just to help women in general. And she wanted to call it the Angel House. And so my mom decided to open this nonprofit, the Angel House, in 2014, I think a month or a couple of months after my sister passed. We opened the doors. We started on the ground running, hitting the ground running. And we helped save a lot of lives. We helped a lot of victims get away from their abusers. And what we did was we provided them with the resources. So we were basically like an underground program. Like you have the Underground Railroad. So we were an underground program where if a victim came to us and needed to get away from her abuser immediately, we provided the resources to help her get away from her abuser. So that meant tapping into our donations that we would receive on a monthly basis. And we would use that money to either buy that person, the victim, a bus, plane, train ticket, or a gas card if they wanted to take their vehicle, to get them out of the state and into a state that had a domestic violence shelter where they could go and stay. So we were connected with, I believe, 17 different states that had domestic violence shelters. We would reach out to those 17 states when that victim would come to us, and whichever state said that they had availability first is where we sent her. The victims did not get to choose where they wanted to go. We would just send them to whatever state had the first availability. And so if we gave them a gas card to drive their vehicle, we would make sure that the Michigan State Troopers would escort them until they got over into the next state, into safety and out of harm's way.
Awesome. And so you and your mom still, I know your mom is so passionate. She give out kits. I got little kits that your mom has passed out, little weapons that ice picks. But one of the things, I am the state director for domestic violence for Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And one of the things we're thinking about is creating like when women are out maybe drinking or whatever, or something where there are signs maybe in the bathroom, or, to let the bartender know, like create codes or something so that they can have quick access to help, because it's still happening, and it's happening. I've never seen so many in our culture, in other cultures, die at the hands of their partner. And there's nobody talking about it. We talk about everything else, but we don't talk about domestic violence and the reality of how it impacts the lives of people. Even children who are witnessing domestic violence grow up angry, defensive. So I just really commend you to continue to do this. So when you think about your healing journey, especially because you guys were not talking, what was your healing journey? How could you help someone heal for losing a loved one, a sibling, from domestic violence?
So when this all first took place, and mind you, during what happened to my sister, as we were in basically preparation for her funeral, me and my ex-husband separated. And so I was pretty much on my own. I stayed back home in Michigan. He continued to stay here in Arizona. And I got myself a condo, and I had turned to alcohol at that time. Alcohol was my source of comfort, I guess you could say. And I had been through a lot. And I had tried counseling. Counseling wasn't helping me. I went to, I think, about 2 or 3 different counselors, and it just wasn't doing me any good. And so I was like, you know what? Your mama did raise you to know the Lord. Why don't you consider praying?
Come on.
So I did. I turned to God, and I prayed my way through. I did not have the proper circle surrounding me at that time too.
That's important.
I had people in my circle, and when I say people, I'm talking more so of family, so-called family, who sat there and would watch me self-medicate with alcohol and would feed me the alcohol by bringing it to me. And I had to come to a realization that these were not my people. Family or not, these are not my people. And so I had to cut them off, and I slowly began to cut off a lot of people one by one as time progressed. As years went on, I think I cut some people off just last year. But
it continues.
But once I found my proper circle and saw the ones who stuck around, and these are friends who become family over time throughout even high school. These are friends from high school, college, who had become family. And once I saw the true love and support from them and realized, like, this is what I need. Having that support, having a good support system, and having God first and foremost will get you through anything.
Amen. Yes. My pastor have that. Yeah. My pastor, title of his message today was "Tell the Devil I'm Still Here." And one of the points was people will come to your funeral, but not your rescue. And so I think that was such a key point.
That part.
Yeah, that was a key point about changing your circle in order for you to heal. So I am just really so honored to have this conversation. And I think lastly, before it ends, what would you, to live out your sister's legacy and your niece's legacy, what else do you believe you need to do?
I believe I need to just keep living and keep helping people, keep being a caring, genuine person, because at the end of the day, that's what my sister would want.
Okay.
She would want me to continue. My sister was not that mushy type of person. I mean, she would do like the most random kindness, the most random act of kindness for me. It'd just be out of nowhere. And I'll call her and I'll be crying. I'll be like, thank you so much. She's like, oh, I can't do this mushiness. Bye. And she'll hang up. You know, that's just how she was. Like she'll give to you. She'll love on you and all of that. But like when it comes to the mushy stuff, no. And I know me or my mom just sitting around crying and grieving over her all this time. She will want us to get out there, to live life, to continue being us and being givers and doing what we can do to help other people. And that's why I say, even though we don't have the angel house, we're still here to help. You can still call on us. You can still reach out to us. We will do the best that we can to the best of our ability. You know, we won't turn anybody away. And if we don't have the resources, we'll find resources or find people who do have the resources to connect you with.
Yes, we donated money and we're here to help too. I mean, that's a mission that in honor of so many lives that have been lost. And I like what you said, just keep living and keep giving and keep being authentic, keep representing your sister and niece. But also we want women to know if you are in a violent situation, that there is help and that you need to leave. You don't need to try to figure out why this is happening. There are shelters available. We have shelters in the city. You could call 911, go to a family member's house, but don't hesitate. We need you to live and keep going. Ry, is there anything else you want to share with us for our listeners? I think this has been an amazing conversation. I know it takes courage to relive those thoughts and those feelings. That was your sister and your niece. Grief and tragic grief is not hard, but I love what you said. Changing your circle, receiving new people into your life, and living. Yeah. Because that's what we have to do. So is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners or women that may be in this fight?
Yes, I just want to say, be strong and know that you can. Just know you can. You can walk away. You can live a better life. You can be free from fear. You can make it. You can survive. You are going to be a survivor as long as you want to be a survivor. Nobody can hold you back from anything because God said he created you for a purpose, and that is not for you to die at the hands of someone other than him. You have a life that's worth living.
Amen. Because he is the author and the finisher of life. And I like what you said. My mama taught me about God because we know all things are possible with Christ Jesus. And finally, I choose me is about who he say we are. And he has told us in his word that we are more than a conqueror, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So ladies, it's not about emotion, it's about living. And so if you need help, reach out. You can reach out to us at the show and we will get you the help that you need. And Ry, I just think you're so beautiful. You look like your mother to me. I'm honored that you said yes. It's been a pleasure talking with you. It's been an honor to hear your story. And we're going to help keep Tracy's name alive.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you all. Be blessed and stay wonderful.
You too. Talk to you soon. Thank you.